Hi Scorpio, how are you? Welcome to Wild March Tarot. My name is Lauren B, but you can call me Miss March if it suits you just fine. Today we are going to be using the Aquarian Tarot and the Wild Unknown Spirit Animal Archetype deck for you. And this is going to be an end of October reading. When I step into your energy, Scorpio, the first thing that I think, that I feel, that I want to say is Scorpio. Scorpio, Scorpio, which is objectively hysterical. And I'm wondering where this cheerleading energy is coming from. And it feels in many ways like it's actually coming from the spirit world, as if your spiritual support team is really cheering you on right now. But it's very clear that you cannot hear it in some capacity. There's something interesting about the dialogue between you and spirit, or you and your intuition, it changing. It almost, I want to say it feels like it's gone down, as if it's difficult for you to discern or to hear, or just feeling as though, almost as if the universe has kind of taken their hands off the wheel and you're sitting there with your bicycle going, am I doing it? Am I doing it? But I think that often, more times than not, when it feels as though the spirit world has gone quiet, or your guides are like not communicating with you, or the signs and the syncs and the omens aren't particularly loud, it actually usually is a sign that yes, you are on your bicycle and you are doing it, and they're watching you and they're cheering you on. So I'm wondering if you are engaging in something right now that requires encouragement, or you may also be in a period where you actually need people cheering you on, saying, yes, do it, you're amazing, this is exciting, I'm rooting for you. There's a sense, and it feels like it's verbal, like I need people to verbally like be excited for me, almost needing to visibly see the support system that exists. But in terms of your intuition, it feels as though, and I almost wonder if this will be kind of a long-term shift for you, because they're showing me someone interesting. They're showing me someone unplugging a wire from a wall, like a TV, and plugging it into like a different outlet or a different like USB socket. But they're also showing me, what are they called? Like zip file, not zip files, the USB, those USB things that you stick in a computer that have like 1,000 files. They're showing me one of those, but then they're also showing me like your telephone, like an iPhone, like a cloud. So what I think in essence what they're showing me is the way that you connect to your intuitions and the energetic channels in you as a vessel, how that information travels through those channels within you is going to be different. Meaning, for instance, like if you're super clairaudient, like something about like it might come forward through your clairsentience, like your truth may be felt more loudly than it is heard, even if previously like that was your strongest clair. So your intuition and the clair, or the channel, and how it expresses itself most strongly might be shifting. But it feels like that shift is a benefit to you, because the way and the channels that your intuition or energy period normally conduct themselves within your body is not necessarily power efficient. And I also think that's why they're showing me going from like this USB plugin to like an iCloud. It's a sense of an updating of like your spiritual technology, how energy and intuition moves within your vessel. And if you are receiving a shift or an upgrade in your abilities or how you communicate with the spirit, that usually is a sign that you're up leveling in some way. You're turning a corner, you're about to hit the next step. And combined with this like Scorpio, whether this has to do with something that is like a real physical, tangible project, or whether this has to do with you overcoming like a huge internal spiritual emotional milestone, it feels as though like you are actually on the precipice of doing something really kind of incredible. And I actually feel it's almost like, I know this is gonna sound kind of crass, but But you know when like you sort of have like indigestion, and it's that moment where like all of it's sort of like bubbling up right before you get to like release it, and then you're like, oh, I feel better, like I can breathe, like my diaphragm feels open. It feels like that, almost like that rising climax, that building tension of like, oh, and now I can breathe again. There's something interesting. For a lot of you, it is like emotional or spiritual in nature. And I honestly, it sounds a little woo-woo in my head, a little bit like, I broke the generational curse. The curse has been lifted. It feels a little bit like that, which feels a little fairy tale dramatic for me. But that being said, like sometimes it really is like that. They're also pointing me, Scorpio, to education. So I'm wondering if towards, for the rest of October, something about this release or feeling free or feeling like empowered by overcoming something. There's something about like you overcome it, you get over the hump, whether it's again a project you're finally finishing or something internal, and it gives you like a real sense of pride and esteem and accomplishment that has you thinking about kind of like what else you can do. So I also say the rest of October being very reflective for you, being able to see yourself probably more accurately as well, meaning that you're probably going to be able to see more of your flaws a little bit, really in HD, which is what everyone loves. But like you're also able to see many more of your virtues that normally you would overlook, Scorpio. And that is bringing me back to education, because I'm wondering for some of you, if you feel as though, I don't know, like I'm not smart enough for school. I used to work with this girl and I always tell her, like, you're so good with kids, go work with kids, go to college, whatever. She's like, I'm not smart enough for that. And I was like, that's absolutely ridiculous. You are smart enough for that. But I'm wondering if you are considering going back to school, entering some kind of certification program, getting accredited in something, or even just like deepening your knowledge of astrology, tarot, like just anything, period. And previously, like you couldn't, or you wouldn't have allowed yourself to, or you felt, I don't know, like you were underestimating yourself, or just felt as though in some way like you were not up to the task, you were not up to the challenge. You might be changing your tune come the end of this month, over the next week and a half, where you're going, actually, I am up to the challenge. I can do it. Look at everything I just accomplished. Absolutely, I'm going to dive into this. So I almost see someone taking like a big like bite out of something, like a big bite of meat or a big like bite of a baguette. Like you're taking a real chunk out of something the end of this month, which actually feels exciting because it almost feels like you haven't been able to sink your teeth into anything for a while. Almost as if everything that you were doing or putting out or participating in was like somewhat surface level. Even if it was a sincere contribution, it was still somewhat surface level. Like again, like we weren't fully diving in or fully committing, or if we just weren't fully. And I also want to say it feels as though it's because other stuff had to get done first. Like you had to have the Scorpio, and like you had to have that rising action. It's like part of like the narrative arc of like your experience right now is kind of what I want to say. And that brings me back to like, that seems dramatic and like a fairy tale. There might be something, and again, education, like a lot of that, like it's about reading, it's about storytelling, it's about understanding, how something becomes, a theory and a hypothesis, and then, an actual fact. And like, there's something about the procedure of how something becomes, I don't know, truth, how rumor becomes truth. There's something interesting here. The Four of Cups, Pisces have that a lot. And then Judgment here. And then the Magician and the Queen of Rods. Something funny is that I see here is you determining who and what around you is boring. Who and what around you is boring. You might actually be looking at certain relationships or people in your friend group or experiences, and you're going, actually, no wonder I'm depressed. This place sucks. Like, you guys are absolutely no fun whatsoever. And there's this Magician here that feels as though like he is the life of the party. And there might be something here, Scorpio, as well, of you going, I actually don't want to be like the only life of the party. I don't want to be like the entire life force. And again, even going back to the way your energy and intuition wants to kind of travel and express itself through you is changing to become more energy efficient. There's something here about like always being the optimistic one, or always being the one that, picks up the slack, or always being the one to like uplift the vibe, and like wanting to have like other I think they call them radiators. I was watching a show. I was watching The Industry, and one of the characters on that show, she said, there are some people that are drains and some people that are like radiators. And I just feels like you actually might have like a lot of drains around you, and you might be realizing like, hey, I'm a radiator. I actually produce like a lot of energy, a lot of optimism, a lot of magic, a lot of whatever. I want to be around more people that are like that, because it's not sustainable for my energy to constantly be like the only source of it. Does that make sense? That also might be part of the education as well. One, with the magician, your education or what you're wanting to sink your teeth into, it may be alchemical. It may be within the occult. It may have to do with earth magic. It may have to do with like kind of more of these celestial type of things, which is really exciting. But it also might have to do with educating yourself on, again, how your energy works, who and what depletes it, what inspires more of it, the kind of people. And then maybe that also connects us back to like education, because it makes me think of like college. And college is a time where you get out of your comfort zone. You usually get out of your hometown. You meet a bunch of people you would have never met. They have all kinds of different personalities and quirks. You get to express your personality and your quirks in different ways, right? It's just, it's very cosmopolitan. And so there is something about that, about come the end of the month, you may also feel like a hunger to be much more social and to meet more people and exchange more ideas. You almost actually feel really excited about meeting the other radiators, meeting the other magicians. And what's coming up in my head is, I think it was a Scorpio reading, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it was someone else's, but it was called the polymath. I think that's right. The polymath? Hold on one second. Scorpio, December 15th, 2020. Scorpio becoming the polymath, December 15th, 2020, I did that reading. You might want to go back and rewatch that. Actually, there's a YouTube reading, and then there's an extended on Patreon, because for whatever reason, that from 4 years ago is coming back up in my mind. Weird. And because it's interesting, because normally the Scorpio reading that reappears is the Silo, which is the reading that I did like right around the time that like Santero had like shouted us out. The Shark in reverse. People around you. Lord in heaven. Literally what comes into my head is, everyone around me is boring and ugly and stupid, which is a literal insane thing to hear inside of my head. But with the Shark here, like literally, this is like, they're boring. Little maybe too judgmental. Ugly actually feels like attitude and not appearance. Everyone around me is boring. They have ugly attitudes and they're kind of stupid, because when I look at the Shark in reverse, the Shark for me is like a King of Cups mixed with the King of Swords. It's really emotionally present and intelligent. It's very clear. It's very sharp, right? Sharks also have like incredible like senses, right? They were able to like sense blood in the water. So sense opportunity, sense vulnerability, sense predator, sense prey, right? So it's like really heightened senses, like overall. And this feels like, in reverse, it feels as though being around people who are not aware, and in a lot of ways this may be very reflective of you over a certain period of time, absorbing a lot of those qualities as well. Feeling not particularly sharp, like your senses have been dulled. It's hard to identify like what is a vulnerability or a potential danger, and what is a support, what is a help, what is a friend, what is a foe, what am I supposed to be doing, what is a waste of my time, right? You may have been experiencing like a lot of this, but in some way it feels, again, like you're rounding a curve, or you're coming out of a fog, or in some way, I actually wonder if there's like a particular noise that goes off when it's all done. I know that sounds strange, but like when the initiation is complete, or like when you round that corner, it's almost like you hear something. It's like hearing a rooster in the morning as it wakes you up. It feels like there's a distinct sound, what that's going to be for you, but it's like you'll know it when you hear it, kind of thing. But part of that waking up is, again, you looking around and realizing who else around you is kind of asleep, and not necessarily judging anyone for it, but definitely using that information to inspire you to like pull in more friends, to meet new people, to find other radiators, to meet the other people who have, like, I want to say, I know it sounds, it's like the Hunger Games, but like to meet the other victors in some way, anything else want to come forward for the rest of the month? Scorpio, the Four of Rods. The Four of Rods. There's actually the distance in this Four of Rods is interesting to me in the Aquarian tarot, where in the Rider-Waite normally you have that couple up front and they're like, come in, come in. Here it's almost the idea of like everyone's in the building, like you already missed roll call, like we already locked the doors and like the ceremony has already started. There might be something here about you recognizing certain people kind of being locked out of the garden gate, so to speak, and needing to like get in on their own, is how that wants to be phrased. So there might be something here about maybe like a narrative you had in your head of me and so are going to do X, Y, and Z. Or me and my sister are going to build this. Or me and my community are going to do that. When in reality, actually it's not the case, because other people, they're not rounding the corner the same time you're rounding the corner. You actually will have to go in first and kind of, they will lock, you don't have to lock the doors. The universe is going to lock the doors. And they'll like have to literally like get in on their own dime, on their own name. It's like, I don't know. It's like, yeah, Eight of Rods. It's like nepotism. Allowing people to in some way kind of ride your coattails. They just won't be able to moving forward. But again, long story short, there might be some people that you are sticking around waiting to see if they would kind of come back up, kind of meet you where you were. They might not be doing that, so you might be just deciding to kind of cut your losses. I'll see you when you get in the building, and not necessarily allowing yourself to stay behind just for the sake of feeling like a good guy about it, right? Which I also think ties into yesterday's collective reading about like no longer making excuses for people, whatever it may be. So anything else that wants to come out for the end of the month? Crocodile in reverse. I see a lot of your antagonists starting to drift away as well. You will notice, they're saying 5 years from now, Scorpio, you'll look back and you'll recognize the common themes in a lot of your antagonists were very much reflective of the themes of like that learning cycle that you were in. So a lot of these crocodile, this particularly feels like subconscious. Thank you. This feels like and the inner critic within the subconscious, or like the inner saboteur, or the inner antagonist, that feels like it's drifting away. There's also, they're going like this, some spiritual poking that maybe you've had experience with, that seems to be surrendering as well. What were you saying? You were saying something to me before. Oh, they were playing me a song when I first stepped into your energy. I don't know who sings it. It's an old song. Is it The Thrill of the Night? The Thrill of the Night. There's something about sleep disturbances here. So if you've been having difficulty sleeping, or if you've been having bad dreams, I think a lot of this intuitive rewiring happens when you're sleeping. So you might be sleeping like extra deep and like be waking up still kind of tired, because it feels like there's a lot of energetic work that is occurring while you are sleeping. So you might need more sleep. You might need an extra nap if you can get it in. Like you might be dragging ass a little bit, but it feels as though if you've been dealing with nightmares or subconscious antagonists, or even like real antagonists, it feels like they're going to start slipping away from you. 8 of Pentacles, we have the beaver here. And you can kind of get back to work, because there's something here with the fire ants in reverse, that if there was an issue with you, again, completing a project, getting something off the ground, it's almost like we were never going to get this off the ground with all of these energies bothering us, with all of these issues here. So it's like you could have done, it didn't matter what you did, nothing was going to work until we finished the cycle and got rid of these fucking pests, is kind of how that wants to come forward, which may provide you a sense of comfort and relief to know that. But now that those pests are leaving, you are able to kind of return back to your meaningful work, is how that verbatim came through. So I'm going to leave this here. Scorpio. I hope that this was helpful or confirming or supportive to you in your life and in your practice. If you're interested in more of these readings, we do daily horoscopes and daily tarot tips and spreads over on Patreon. We also do full monthly readings. Your November monthly reading will be coming out very soon. Any information you'll need from me in regards to socials, personal readings, anything like that, that will be in the description below. I love you very much, Scorpio. Congratulations on rounding this curve for the end of the month. Know that I too am in the crowd going, Scorpio, Scorpio. and I'll see you next time.